City rail fans. You've tuned in to the Iron City Roundhouse Report, the podcast where we delve into the fascinating world of locomotives, rolling stock, and the rich history and current state of railroading. I'll be one of your hosts. My name's Brad Williamson, and our other host is my good friend Patrick Moore. And whether you're a seasoned model railroader, a history buff, or just someone who loves the sound of a passing train, you're in the right place. We're proudly affiliated with the Iron City N-Scale Facebook group, but don't let the name fool you. We cover all scales from Z to G and everything in between. We'll be exploring the vibrant railroading scene of western and central Pennsylvania, from the mighty steel giants of the past to the intricate layouts of today. Expect in-depth discussions, interviews with experts, and plenty of stories from the rails. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and enjoy the Roundhouse Report, a podcast of Iron City, by Iron City, and for Iron City. Hello, and welcome once again to another episode of the Iron City Roundhouse Report. We're so glad you're with us tonight, and we've got a pretty interesting show, something we're taking a little bit different approach this week, Pat. We are Iron City N-Scale, but in the last couple of years, we've kind of branched out and realized that there's a big whole world out there in the hobby of larger scales. So we're calling this episode, Go Big or Go Home. We've got some modelers here, some very talented modelers, very accomplished modelers who are going to be joining us, and they model primarily in scales larger than our beloved N scale. So should make for an interesting show, something different for our listeners, and I think it'll be really enjoyable based on like I said, the talent of the guys that we've got here. So what do you think, Pat?
Hey, everybody. Great to be back. Episode 15, Brad. Can you believe it? Episode 15.
I cannot believe we've lasted that long.
Yeah. Hey, Brad, you and I sit a lot of times in the shows, and a lot of the guys are like, well, the only time I have N scale is, for the T-track. And when my home layout is HO, or my home layout is an O scale, or I have S or something. So you and I were like, hey, there's a lot of people with different scales that probably want to hear what's going on in the train world. And it's very interesting because we've had showcases with S scale. We've had several showcases on our page with HO. So it doesn't, a technique to me is a technique. Now, I think there's some different approaches to the larger scales, and we get into that during the show tonight. But I think it's great to hear from everybody in the hobby. And you and I are branching out a little bit. Those big trains make me a little nervous for square footage.
Yeah, we're broadening our horizons a little bit, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And it is, there are, it's like you said, modeling is modeling. And, generally many of the techniques that work in HO or larger scales will work in N scale. But there are things like we're used to dealing with, a wide curve radius is 19 inches in N scale, and HO, if you want a wide curve, it's got to be twice that. So there's a lot of things that do transfer, a lot of skills, a lot of techniques that transfer, but it is neat to listen to the approach that these guys who are in larger scales and just come at it from a little bit different perspective. So I think it's going to make for a good time to hear, their thoughts and stuff. And like we said, to broaden our horizons, expand our universe a little bit, and capture some of these guys who do model in larger scales. And if you're listening to this and haven't joined Iron City N Scale yet, don't, just because the name of the Facebook page is Iron City N Scale, we are not exclusively N Scale. That's the way we started off. But we've since realized that it's kind of dumb to try to exclude, all these great modelers just because they model in a scale different from what we started in. So, looking forward to this, and hopefully everyone will enjoy it. I know we're going to enjoy talking to these guys.
Hey, Brad, but first we're doing whatever we always love, and that's the Roundhouse Report. Are you ready to jump in?
I am ready, Pat. Who wants to lead off? Are you going to lead off, or do you want me to?
How about I'll take the first one tonight? This is a quick one. I'll throw it back to you so we can maybe do a couple tonight. Hey, I want to say congratulations to Brian James. He won the cover photo contest in October, and that's sponsored by the Whistle Stop Hobbies and our models. And we really appreciate everyone's entry. It was actually a tie, and our friend George Hall will be the winner for November. George is a multi cover winner. But Brian James, I think it was the first time that he put in for the cover photo contest, and he won. So I think we had like the most we've had in a long, long time, Brad. I think it was 12 entries. So great
Yeah.
photos, and I really I'm pleased that Brian won for this month.
Yeah, congratulations to Brian and thank you for participating. And also, congrats and thank you to our good friend George, one of the guys who's been with us from literally the very beginning. And he's just got a lot of really neat photo locations on his layout. So I'm sure we'll look forward to more of those photo entries from George and in future months. But yes, congrats to both of those guys and thank you for participating. Thank you to everyone who participated. Keep those photos coming when Pat calls for them. It's always fun to see what people are doing and fun to see whose photo gets voted to be the cover photo for us. So thank you for that, and we look forward to many more of those.
Okay, Brad, who else do you have tonight?
The one that caught my eye was my good buddy, another guy who's been with us from basically, pretty doggone close to the very beginning, Chuck Rockwell. He recently completed his Buffalo staging yard. He got the track laid down and looks like a pretty decent sized yard. He's got capacity for some long trains. I know Chuck likes to run long trains on his layout, and it just looks like some really good track work, but there's a lesson to be learned there though. And Chuck is probably one of the more accomplished track layers, I think, that we have in Iron City. But even he had to, go back and say this turn, I don't know if you saw it or not, Pat, but he laid a curve in and he decided that the radius was too tight on it. So he made an adjustment and got a wider curve. And I think it was just today or maybe yesterday, he had some of those those long 89-foot auto parts box cars running through there. So if you can get those to run through, I think your curve's now wide enough to accommodate pretty much anything. So thanks to Chuck for sharing that. And Chuck was also a participant he was on one of the Yardmaster segments, I believe, with
That's
us
right.
earlier this season 1. So yeah, it's always great to see what Chuck has in store. I can still remember the first showcase Chuck did when he was in his old location. He had a shed that he had, I think, a 4-level layout in with a big helix.
Yeah, I did.
And
Yeah.
he did that show. I think that was one of the very early showcases that we had. And now he's got a larger building built on their new property down there in Florida, and he's putting together a really cool layout that I always look forward to seeing what Chuck accomplishes and the new stuff that he's doing. So thank you to Chuck for sharing your progress, and we look forward to seeing a lot more from you in the future.
Brad, did you see what I posted on there on Chuck's thing? I put, "This is ridiculous. Can't wait to see more."
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's such a big layout. You're like, man, how
Yeah.
you have to. I wonder if Chuck is doing it in phases or if he's got his plan. And we're hoping to talk to him again here shortly.
Yeah.
In the next episode coming up.
The neat thing is Chuck is a professional railroader too. He works for CSX, and he owns a lot of locomotives. I think you can see in the pictures of the locomotive box. But that's how I actually met Chuck, on the sales sites on Facebook. I bought a bunch of Buffalo and Pittsburgh equipment from him, and I also bought the Western New York and Pennsylvania engine that he custom painted. So yeah, he's a very talented modeler, and just has a really cool setup coming together there. So looking forward to seeing what more comes of that.
Yeah, Brad, the next one I have is Meester.
Meester
He had
or Meister, sorry,
Meister. Sorry,
Yeah.
messed that one up.
Yeah.
So hey, he had a showcase, and unfortunately, we had some bandwidth issues with Facebook that night, and we couldn't. Some people were getting the showcase, and some people weren't. So we did a part two and tried to catch up, and this time it's stuck, and we have them on the. If you didn't get to see it, it's on the featured tab on most people's iPads or on your laptop. But he has a great layout that's under construction. And Heath is really known for his weathering. His weathering is some of the best I've seen. And his layout's getting there. And we really appreciate everyone participating in the showcases. I think we've had 2 or 3 now. And I know a guy that's about to do one, right, Brad?
Who would that be, Pat?
So I just wanted everybody to know that Brad will be back. Hopefully he'll do a little bit of remote ops too. I was hoping I could run a train while he's doing his showcase. But Brad will be back on the 13th of November.
I didn't know you wanted to. I already got 3 or 4 guys lined up to do that. No. Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that if you wanted to try that this time when I did that. That would be cool.
Yeah, that way you got some extra hands there.
Yeah, I haven't quite figured out what the format of it's going to be. I'd kind of like to, I've been posting on the website the remote ops cameras. I've expanded from 2 to 6 of them now, so I got more coverage on the layout, but I don't know if I could share all 6. I'm going to do some experimenting between now and then to see what exactly this is going to look like. But yeah, we'll be doing something for sure. And I think just since you brought it up tonight, we're committed now. It's going to have some somebody operating remotely on there.
Right. And Brad, how about one more from you tonight for the Roundhouse Report?
Okay. I got to give out a good shout out to my buddies in the Iron City East group. We just had a really successful show just this past Sunday. What is today? The 27th. It would be the 26th, I guess, at the Woodward Township Fire Hall between Jersey Shore, PA and Williamsport, Pennsylvania. The Clinton Central Model Railroad Club that many of the Iron City East guys are members of does 2 shows every year at this Woodward Township Fire Hall. We just had that, and setup went really well. We had Neil Moniz, he's been right there with me from the very beginning of Iron City East. He had 3 modules and some trains in the show. We had Nick Wummer there with us, who's also one of the early guys who got in on the ground level at Iron City East. He had 3 modules there, including the one that he just entered in the show contest at Altoona, the module building contest. So he had his 3 singles there. Ricky Larson had 3 of his modules in. And then we also had Andy Ludwig, Kevin Burton, and Mike Barnes, including myself, were part of that layout. So we basically ran from 9 to 2, and the layout ran pretty well, and we just had a good time. So thanks to all those guys for being willing to set up with a goof like me. And it's fun to be able to do those. I always enjoy coming out to the Pittsburgh area to run with the larger Iron City group, but sometimes it's nice, Pat, to be able to be in a show and still lay your head on your own pillow at night. You know what I mean?
That's right.
It's nice to have, and I do know that a lot of you guys from out west want to try to make it in sometime. So hopefully we can make that happen too. And in one of the Iron City East shows, have some of you guys from the Pittsburgh area join us. But yeah, it's just a cool branch off of the main Iron City, and a lot of all those guys that I mentioned, I believe, have come along with us to the bigger shows at one time or another. So yeah, we had a good time with that, and thanks to those guys for making it a very pleasant setup, and we just kept the trains running all day long, and things went great.
Excellent. Okay, Brad. Hey, when we come back, everybody, we'll be on episode 15, Go Big or Go Home. So we'll be back right after this. Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is episode 15. We're calling this episode Go Big or Go Home because we have some S-scale and HO scale modelers with us tonight, and we have a new set of Yardmasters. So with that, I'll pass it over to Brad so he can introduce our Yardmasters for this evening.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. We do have a cool show in store here. We're expanding our horizons beyond our normal end scale, and we've got some guys in larger scales tonight who I think are going to make for some very interesting discussions. So we'll just start off. I'm going to briefly introduce them. I'm not going to get into any details about their layouts or anything because I think we'll be probably getting into that as part of our discussion tonight. So first off, we have a guy who's been here on the show with us a couple times already on the office car special segments that we do. We have Dave Abeles from New Jersey. Dave works for New Jersey Transit for his full scale railroading job.
The day job.
The day job. Yeah, the day job. So welcome, Dave. It's great to have you back, and thanks for
Brad,
being
Pat, always a pleasure, guys. Glad to be here and looking forward to tonight.
And then we have from Texas, we have David Heyde. And David is also an HO modeler, but also interestingly enough, David is a French horn, a world renowned French horn player for the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. I hope I got that right because I always get mixed up.
Correct.
Oh, I nailed it.
That's it. You nailed it.
So it's a real pleasure to have David here too. It's been a while since I've spoken to David other through text, so it's good to hear your voice, my friend, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Then we have Chris Adams here with us tonight, who's from the New England area. What state again is it, Chris? I'm sorry, is
The great state of Connecticut.
the great state of Connecticut. And you work, I know, in politics. I don't remember your exact job title.
Yeah, we don't need to get into that, but
Okay.
but yeah, the day job is I work at the Connecticut legislature as one of their council.
Okay, thank you. So it's great to have you here, and I'll echo what I said to David too. I've missed hearing, just being able to chat with you like this. We've been chatting in text, but it's great to hear your voice. And
Very glad
then,
to be here.
thank you. And then the fourth Yardmaster we have tonight from South Carolina, we have a great friend of the Iron City webpage and also one of the best structure scratch builders, I think, in the entire country. We have Scott Lister here with us. So, Scott, thank you for being here, and it's great to hear your voice again, buddy.
Well, I really appreciate it, Brad.
We do too. So, with that, we got the introductions done, and I'll hand it back over to Pat to get things started here. Pat.
All right. Hey, here we go. We'll start it off. We'll go with Dave Abeles first. The first question we have this evening is, what scale are you modeling, and what's the name of your layout, and what got you to build what you built?
Well, and again, it's always a pleasure to be here, Pat, and happy to start the discussion tonight with this esteemed group of people that I've become friendly with through a bunch of different podcasts through the years, and really at this point we've all met at different points, different railroads. But I model an HO scale Conrail in what I really see as the zenith, the high point of the Conrail operation in 1994, late 1994, early 1995 in upstate New York on the former New York Central water level route, which is Conrail's Chicago line, and my railroad's called the Onondaga Cutoff. You guys may have seen it online or a couple different publications and stuff over the years, but it's something I love operating and really enjoy sharing with the model railroad community. Absolutely embrace the sharing of it is actually probably one of my favorite parts of the whole hobby at this point. And I think that's a really remarkable story at this point. You've got multiple podcasts that allow this kind of discussion. You've got all sorts of publications in print. You've got websites and blogs, all sorts of different ways to put your creative work online and for people to interact with you. And that interaction, my day job in New Jersey Transit, as Brad spoke of before, that interaction is what railroading is all about. Railroading, yeah, there's trains, there's property, there's infrastructure, there's mechanical, but it's all about people. There's no railroad operation that works with just one person. And that's the same way model railroading can work. And that's my favorite part of the Onondaga Cutoff. The OC is a platform where like-minded railroaders can get together, run some trains, and that's railroaders in the 1-to-1 scale and railroaders in the 187th scale or any other scale you can imagine, even though I'm not that familiar with some of these other. This was one of the first times I've been called a larger scale. I have to admit it.
Okay.
No, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Excellent.
We refer to that as horribly oversized.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah. So, Chris, won't you introduce yourself and introduce your layout to our listeners?
Yeah, hi, Chris Adams. I have a layout called the Valley Local. It's on a lot of different platforms. It's on Facebook as the Valley Local, modeling the New Haven Railroad in 1948. I have a website, which is www.thevalleylocal.net. And there's also a blog related to that as well. And like Dave, as you could probably imagine, with being on so many different areas and channels, I really do enjoy sharing the hobby as well, sharing what I've learned. I really have grown to enjoy that. I'm not an expert in anything, but I have made my share of mistakes and really just enjoy trying to inspire other people to model as well and just get into it. And the layout itself is an HO scale and models the New Haven Railroad's Connecticut Valley line between Old Saybrook, Connecticut, which is where I live, down on the shore, South Shore, Long Island Sound, and up to Hartford, Connecticut. So I have the honor and distinction of being able to basically commute near my railroad or paralleling my railroad every day back and forth. And the era is 1947 to 1949. That is basically the transition era, which I really enjoy because on the New Haven, on this line, in 1947, it was all steam. In 1948, it was a little bit of mix of steam and diesel. And then by 1949, it was all diesel. 4 different locals interchange with one another on the layout, as well as it includes a slice of the shoreline, main line between New York and Boston. So there's a lot of contrast. And like Dave also, I do enjoy sharing the layout itself through operating sessions and also increasingly in the hobby press as well. I'm just getting it out there and just enjoying what I've learned and sharing it.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay, next we're going to go to Scott Lister. Scott, tell us a little bit about your layout. You're even bigger than these guys, so tell us a little bit about your layout.
Okay, I am Scott Lister from Greenville, South Carolina, and I am modeling the Greenville Northern. It was a short line back from 1889 to 96, I'm sorry. And it was about 12 miles long, and they had 3 engines basically, and they were 70 tonners. And I'm like the other guys, if I love sharing the hobby, and I am always wanting people to ask questions on my Facebook page. If they need help, I'm there to help them. And the reason I got into S-Scale mainly is because you have to build everything. Nothing's really available except, your basic stuff, and like structure, you pretty much have to scratch build. And that's just one of my passions of the hobby, is scratch building.
Excellent. And
it's such a pleasure to have met you, Scott. And
yeah, same here, Dave.
This is, and really, I mean, this is where the Old Modeler's Life podcast, I think, did do so much to bring so many people together in its original inception. And meeting you guys, meeting you, especially Scott, with the scratch building and the work you've helped me do on the Onondaga Cutoff has been a wonderful thing to be able to share. And it brings people together. And that's the root of this hobby. I loved it. Watching your Facebook post, Scott, on your page of who's visited and who's run a train and whose technique you're playing with. It's a lot of fun to watch over time.
And it really is. And I would love to have time one day just to explain the history of my railroad. I mean, it has such a rich history from the steam days all the way up to the modern diesel era. But I mean, it's a very long story. It'd take a lot of time to tell, but it was all about coal. That was what it was about.
And Scott was at actually Iron City Showcase for us. And you talk about some N scalers with their mind blown when he had windows that worked. That's not going to happen in N scale.
No, you can't actually do that in that.
And garage doors that go up. But Scott can scratch build in N scale. I can attest to that.
That's right. That's right.
one of the showpiece structures on my layout. I was fortunate enough that Scott built that for me, and it just turned out absolutely beautiful. So,
And that's the beauty of this whole thing, meeting you guys and all the different scales. It's led me to be able to work in other scales, and that's fascinating, to build in different scales.
Okay, and we have one more to introduce, and that's David Heyde. Dave, go ahead. Tell us a little about your railroad and a little bit about yourself.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. My name's David Heyde, and I live down here in Texas. I live in a suburb of Dallas called Garland, and I modeled the Missouri, Kansas, Texas Railroad in 1987, otherwise known as the Katy, green and yellow Katy. And I grew up in Texas most of my life. I actually have Iron City roots. Both my parents grew up in Pittsburgh, around Pittsburgh. My dad's from Butler, and my mom's from the North Hills of Pittsburgh. I'm a huge Pittsburgh Pirates fan, Pat.
There you
I have
go.
a whole room full of 1990s memorabilia from the teams that were good back then, but I'm a huge Pirates fan. But anyways, I've lived in Texas since I was 5 or 6. And I grew up on the Katy main line, just south of Waco, Texas. And my railroad is loosely based on the Texas subdivision, which ran from Belmead, Texas to Smithville, Texas. And Belmead was a suburb of Waco, just to the north of Waco. And I basically model Belmead Yard south through Waco, parts of Waco, and then kind of end south of Waco a little bit, and then I go into what I call Smithville staging. So it's basically a one-car garage size layout, 2 decks, and been working on it for about 6 years, I think, since I started. But HO scale, like I said, and just really happy to be here. Soon I'm going to be joining the Scott Lister Club. I have an M&M Mars candy factory that he just texted me last night and told me he's almost done. So I'm getting pretty excited.
Awesome.
For that building.
I can tell you, it is literally an emotional moment whenever
I cannot wait.
when you lay eyes the first time on something that Scott builds for you. And
I know.
Guys, y'all are that's too much.
Wait, am I the only one here that doesn't have a Scott Lister building on my layout address?
I don't have one either.
But it kind of goes without saying that you're left out, though. Isn't that kind of your thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
No. I mean, Pat.
Yeah.
Always.
Scott will make a trash train for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Growing up in New Jersey in the 80s, like the green and yellow Katy was so quickly in my childhood absorbed into UP that I remember seeing it early in Trains magazine. There was a couple of features that showed it, and it always looked like this big, heavy duty main line in the Texas hills, and I loved it as a kid. And seeing your work, David, seeing your work has opened my. It's so much fun to look back and to have met you at Springfield a couple of times too, but to look at what you're doing, and it brings back some of those same little kid memories that I had. It's like, oh, that's so cool.
Well, thanks, Dave. Yeah, I remember growing up, and we would get to a grade crossing, and I would get so excited when we get stopped by the train. My mom had this Pontiac Parisienne station wagon, and we would sit in the back and flip around and watch the train go by, and I would get so disappointed when it wasn't an all green and yellow consist, because the Katy was such a motley crew. You'd have these Conrail patch units or Penn Central patch units, or these really, really rusty Illinois Central Golf Jeep 38 ACs. And you were like, what is that? And why is it doing way down here? But I just grew up, we'd ride our bikes up to the main line, throw pennies on the track, thinking we're going to derail the train. But those were the earliest memories. Those were the earliest memories for me. And it was with the Katy. And I fell in love with that railroad.
And David, I think our listeners might be interested too, that your throttle of choice is
the proto throttle.
Yeah. You use those just about exclusively, man.
I have 6 proto throttles.
Oh my God. Here we go.
Pat, you got to tone down the bitter, buddy. It's
Yeah, I know, right?
I'll let you.
Auto throttle, you don't go back.
I'll let you use mine sometime, Pat. Don't worry.
Oh my gosh. Hey,
They're a lot of fun. They are. They really are. But yeah, let's keep
Yep.
it moving.
Yep. The next set of questions have been evaluated and approved by Brad. He stamped them before I was supposed to read them. So here we go. Okay. The first one is from one of our page guys on our website, and it's just Andrew Hopkins, and he's asking you guys tonight, which HO scale brands are the best money for your value, i.e., is one box car at $50 better to spend than maybe two at $25? We'll let Chris go with this one first, and we'll go around and let everybody answer. But that's from Andrew Hopkins this evening.
Well, I would like to maybe take a little bit of a different angle on that with regard to locomotives. As far as locomotives go, and hopefully my friend Bill isn't listening to this, but as wonderful as Rapido's stuff is, probably the best value, especially at the lower end, is the Walthers Proto and Walthers Mainline locomotives. I've got a Walthers Mainline SW1 that it wasn't great shakes. I mean, it doesn't even hold a candle to Rapido as far as detail. It's molded on detail. Very like 1980s, 1990s level of detail, but runs great and you can do a lot with it. And so I detailed it up and it's one of my favorite locomotives now. So it's one of those deals where if you know where to look, not only at the swap meets and at the train shows, I mean, the hobby doesn't have to be super expensive, and you can get a lot of value out of a lot of secondhand freight cars. I mean, just segueing back to the freight cars, you know, if you pay retail, you're gonna be paying full retail, and you're gonna be paying more. But good grief, I can tell you from a seller's standpoint, I've certainly sold freight cars and things at pennies on the dollar just for two main reasons. One, because either it no longer fits my era, or I'm upgrading, you know, detail levels and stuff like that. But I almost would give them away. You know, if there's somebody that needs freight cars, you know, if I'm getting a few pennies on the dollar, you know, that's gravy. It goes back into the hobby fund. So from a buyer standpoint, be looking for those opportunities, because there are, I think, a lot of folks in the hobby that are very generous. You know, not everybody's trying to price gouge you. At the shows, there's a lot of folks that will put really good quality stuff out for relatively little money. I mean, anything from Craftsman kits all the way up to ready to roll, or, you know, Katy cars, you know, even Rapido stuff will be out there. Hopefully that answered the question, but
Yeah.
being the first, it's kind of tough, because just like, I want to bounce off of other guys.
You're right. So David Hyde, what do you think? What are some of your suggestions on products?
Yeah, so I have a whole gamut. Bang for your buck, budget. So I would say, as far as rolling stock, my favorite, like bulletproof, rolls great. You can find it like because they've been around for a long time. You can get some of the older stuff, you know, early 2000s, and it still looks good, rolls really well. Atlas. So a lot of Atlas cars just roll great. They're well weighted. I have some Atlas Trainman Gons on my layout. They're MKT Gons. I renumbered them, and they are awesome. And they're like $15, $12 a car, and they look great on the layout. I mean, granted, they're gondolas, but they look really nice. And then I think a close second would be like the Walthers Mainline, another great bang for your buck car. And also they run really well. I really like the wheels on the Walthers cars. They really roll quite well. I mean, I love all the stuff, you know. I mean, my car of choice, you know, you go up and you look at something like Tangent, which are phenomenal cars, and everything in between. But bang for your buck, I would go with Atlas and a Walthers Mainline. And as far as engines, bulletproof reliability, I have some older Atlas engines that have been really great, and they're pretty inexpensive. And then also like newer Athearn RTR stuff with economy decoders. If you want something, some of the older RTR doesn't have all the like MU cables and stuff like that, but the newer RTR most of the newer RTRs coming with MU cables and a lot of detail parts, and you get a lot of bang for your buck on those Athearn RTR engines, as well as like an Atlas Master. You can find those usually for under $200 with an ESU, a version 5 decoder in the locomotive. So
Excellent. Okay, Scott, we know you scratch build a lot, but on the S-scale side, what are some brands that you would recommend that are reliable and can help you in the hobby?
If you're starting in S scale, I would probably suggest going to American Models. They have a wide variety of rolling stock and really decent running locomotives. So basically, that's about it right now that you're going to probably find on the market. Used stuff, there's, S Helper Service would probably be your best bet if you could find some of that, which you can at shows if you go look hard enough. Those were really good running engines. So, yeah, basically that's it. As far as HO goes, I'm not really sure.
It's too small for
not
you.
all right. Well, I just can't remember that. Well, I did model in HO
That's
years
right.
ago. I just can't remember what I had and what was the best of what I had. So
Scott, I
sorry.
think that's all right. One other thing while we have you here that I think a lot of our listeners would, I know I would like to know, what are some of your favorite companies for the scratch building you do? Because
Yeah,
the
that'd be
incredible
good.
structures you make, what's your go-to companies for scratch building supplies?
Oh, okay. Like most of my wood comes from Mount Albert, and I hadn't purchased it in a while. I'm not sure how that's going now, but that's where I would buy most all my wood. And the other stuff is a variety of things. I mean, I have a new guy. It's composite design. Tom, he's really starting out strong, and he does HO, N, and S. And then as far as structures go, you have there are several companies that are building like Mind Mountain Models. They do S scale as well. NHO. I don't know if they do N scale, but I think they do. But yeah, there's a lot out there. Just have to start looking, and I don't know. It's hard to find, but you can find it.
Yeah. Okay, Dave, what do you think about these products and what's best for HO for your bargain for your buck?
Oh, Pat, I mean, whether it's HO or N, we are really, it's been said before, but we are really in an unbelievably golden age for anyone to get into the hobby, and for all of us that have been in the hobby for a while. Beyond just the blue box stuff that you might find at a train show and HO scale, or the old Atlas cars or the old Cato cars and N scale that you might find here or there, some of the old microtrain stuff, used stuff, or stuff that's been, the estate sales or what have you. It's an unbelievable opportunity right now. The quality of stuff that you can get, and the guys have already talked about some of it. I mean, Walther's mainline stuff, especially, but what's really especially nice about Walther's mainline or the old Athearn blue box or roundhouse cars is that you have the opportunity to do some of the detailing yourself. And adding details is something that all of us that grew up in the 70s and 80s and even the early 90s really embraced. It was a lot of fun to be able to add grab irons to a car. It's a very satisfying part of the hobby. But I can tell you right now, on the Onondaga cutoff, easily a third of my fleet, maybe even half, depending on the operating session, is roundhouse, Walther's early and Athearn blue box cars that I've weathered and painted or redecaled, or in some cases detailed to match a certain prototype. There's no reason, there's no shame at all, especially in operations. And as we move forward here, the opportunities to go with super detailed stuff. If you're doing a Scott Lister style layout, if it's a layout that's based on a couple locomotives and intense switching operations, those are the kind of situations where having a handful of super detailed cars really makes a big visual difference. But if you're doing what Todd Treaster does, or what a T-track layout would be doing on the weekend, or even what I do on the Onondaga cutoff, if you're running 40 and 50 car trains, you don't need every car to be super detailed. In fact, you can get by with a handful of cars that are super detailed, and the rest of them can be, budget models or stuff that you got secondhand. So starting out, it really depends on the goal, and I think that's the message for the listeners. If you just want to have a couple cars, there's no reason not to spend the extra money or do the extra work and have some super detailed stuff that you can be proud of. But if you're running an operation, if your goal is to run long trains, there's nothing wrong with mixing it up. You can get a couple super detailed guys or do it yourself, but you can also feel free to round out the roster with either Walther's Mainline or the old Blue Box or Roundhouse models. There's a lot of different ways to go, and it's all fun. That's the thing to remember, is that it's all fun.
That just jogged something in my mind there too, Dave, with choosing the right amount of detail. Mine is more from a structure standpoint, but the station that I mentioned that Scott built, Front Street Station in Northumberland. Normally, when I'm still in the process of building my layout. I usually just rough in the scenery in a given area, so I have some scenery to drive trains through, with the idea then that once everything else is done, I can go back and take my time super detailing. But when I plop that station down in what is in the area that's going to be Northumberland, it's like I can't just rough in the scenery around that. I gotta make sure everything, because I can't even bring myself to take a picture of that when it's surrounded by just roughed in scenery. So I'm actually having a really good time with that. I've gotten some really nice 3D printed structures and stuff that I found, and I'm having a great time, painting them and making them look nice enough to sit beside Front Street Station. So it's neat to, do those different levels of details. When you're starting off, you just rough it in. I do anyway. Or if it's a scene that's going to be really important, which this area of Northumberland is going to be a focal point of my layout, I want to get it up to snuff right away. So just a different approach, but similar to the approach you talk about. I run fairly long trains too, and I do have some cars, some of them higher end stuff, but it's nice to be able to get a fleet of a little bit less detailed cars, especially in N scale. From 5 feet away, you really can't tell the difference. But when you want a close up photo, it's nice to have a really nicely detailed car too. So
I really enjoy seeing what you and Todd Treaster, our friend Todd, of course, from the OCS series, what you guys do when you get the modules together, what Todd does on his railroad when he has his open houses and his operating sessions. There is something special about N scale and long trains. What a pleasure to watch that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that drew me to N too, was the ability to run the long trains. But yeah.
So hey,
Before
we're
we
gonna
move on,
go
before
ahead.
we move on to the next question, if I could come just full circle, and now I get the chance to bounce off everybody else. I was surprised that nobody mentioned what I remembered myself after I got passed on, which is an obvious value for the buck, especially if you're modeling steam era, transition era, is AccuRail cars in HO scale. The AccuRail line of freight cars, right out of the box, they're as easy to build as the old Athearn Blue Box kits, but they can be detailed pretty easily by snipping off the sill steps and just adding A-line steps. You get that nice horizontal look, at track level, and it looks like a super detailed car as soon as you weather it. I mean, Eric Hansman and I think, oh gosh, his name just went right out of my head, the guy that's modeling New York Central branch line, Jim Six. They use AccuRail cars to great effect, and you can pick those up, gosh, at a train show or something, sometimes for just $5, brand new in the box.
Great kits. That's a
And
good
they
call.
are great little,
Good call, Chris.
just a little bit of weathering, and from a few feet away, they look just as good as a Westerfield. I will say though, just real quick, and you guys kind of alluded to it as well, 3-foot rule. It's a great rule to have, especially when you're building a big fleet. But with digital photography and everything, you will want a few of those super detailed cars as well whenever you do those close-ups. But for 90% of the time, operations, good value for the buck. If you're doing anywhere from the late 30s to the late 50s, AccuRail cars, in HO scale at least, are going to be the way to go.
They've got some great kits for the 80s and 90s as well. And the paint is beautiful. It's nice and flat, and you can weather it really well with pastels or an airbrush very easily. That's a good call, Chris. AccuRail, I've got easily a dozen of those here on the OC, probably more. And they're a lot of fun to build. It's a great kit.
Okay, as we go on to the next question, I'm going to go with Scott on this one, and I know his answer, but a lot of our listeners will be the first time hearing from Scott. Scott, what part of the hobby do you enjoy the most, and what gives you the most frustration?
Okay, the part that gives me the most joy is scratch building structures.
I knew it. I knew it.
That's a
Called it. Called it.
Yeah, great. Right.
Womp womp.
And boy, do you do a beautiful job of it. Holy smokes.
Yeah, wow. But anyways, we'll say the most frustrating would be programming decoders. I'm really struggling with that.
And is there a big difference in decoding at the larger scales, or is it about the same?
It's
No.
the exact same. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm using the ESU decoders, and I'm getting back into that. I got out of it. I gave everything away, and now I've bought everything back because I'm told it's the best way to go.
As I recall, you gave your programmer to one of our guys, Richard Schreiber, the Iron
that's
City
right.
historian. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you are, who did you say you were working with again to try to?
Scott Thornton.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Actually, tomorrow night we're getting together to.
ESU
Scott's a great
decoders.
guy.
Yeah. ESU decoders do have a learning curve. There's no doubt about it. But once I hated them up until very recently, but once I figured it out, man, what you can do with them is just amazing. If you can put up with, getting through that early learning curve, nearly vertical learning curve, I would say.
Exactly. I've been promised that I'm going to be able to get through this with, flying colors. So we'll see.
So Scott,
He's a great guy.
If you could tell our listeners, what system are you using right now to run your layout on?
Oh, I use the NCE. Yeah.
So for power and everything, it for HOS, it scales.
It's the same. Okay. Yeah, I'm using 5 amp transformer, and that's basically it. It's the same. I'm using the Pro Cab.
Yeah. Okay. So David Heyde, what do you have the most joy with in the hobby right now? What's really frustrating you in the hobby?
Well, I think there's a three-way tie for me. It's most joy. Scenery work, I used to be my go-to. I love doing scenery work. That's kind of my deal, my jam. But
it shows from the pictures I've seen of your layout.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, I agree.
So that is kind of the biggie for me as far as building a layout. But the other two, and it's kind of what Dave talked about, and it's sharing the layout with new people from all over the country, local people, people that have never operated before, and they come in and their eyes get real big, and I say, here, let's run a terrain. And then the other thing is operating. I love to operate now. I have totally just dived in, and I just drove, took 3 days just to drive to Denver to operate for basically 2 days,
awesome.
So it's those three things. And then the thing that I really dislike the most, I feel very, I feel like my, building structures is really my weakest link. Putting together buildings well. I need to fly out and spend a week with Scott so he can show me how to do it really well.
You got to go to the academy.
I mean, I've built all of my structures on my layout, but a lot of them are based on kits and stuff like that. But that would be for me the hardest thing right now. And then after that, probably like Scott said, it's just dealing with the computers. And that's all encompassing, right? That's from LCC to JMRI to decoder programming. That's tough. That can be.
Yeah. And some of it, I've got a little story here. So I sent a DCC locomotive back to Brad. 30 seconds later, he calls me and says, there's nothing wrong with this. And I'm like, okay, what did I do? So I'm with mine, I'm using DCC EX. Well, there's a program that you set both your tracks up on, and there's a default. And if you don't go back every time and hit that default, which I forgot, it turns your DCC track into DC. So for 4 days, I couldn't get anything to work. it was just a simple little thing, but that gets frustrating, right? And that's a computer thing. That's
It
not
does.
the
It
system
does,
worked.
yeah.
The system worked perfectly. As soon as I remembered that step, it came right back on. Everything ran, but it's those memorization now of digital systems that you have to make sure you're constantly
Yes.
aware
And
of. Yeah.
and the best part of it is you figured it out without having to call Kevin or me. That was the
I did
awesome
it.
part.
Yeah.
Way to go, buddy. Way to
Didn't
go.
have to use the help desk. Yeah.
And Pat,
So,
I would say, before you go on, I would say like nothing really like I'm like dread it. It's just maybe I'm a little
right.
slow to get to it. And it's
Right.
like once I dive in, then I kind of get going with it, right? If you just
Right.
you really have to just dive in and just try. So,
Right. Uncle Dave, what do you think? What do you enjoy the most, and what's frustrating for you right now?
I think what I enjoy the most, if I had to guess or had to list it from the topics that are sort of at the front of the mind, would certainly be operations and sharing the hobby. But one thing I really appreciate about this hobby, sort of a step on top of that, is the ability to accumulate experience and have something that gets better with time. We're able to refine our skills, and with every weathering job, we have a chance to learn to be a little bit better at weathering. I'm certainly weathering at a level now that I never thought I'd be able to do when I was a teenager or in my 20s. I love the cumulative nature of the hobby and how it can build on itself and how it waits for you when you're busy. If you've got other stuff to do or you lose a little bit of your mojo, that's okay. It'll be there when you come back. And I love the fact that it's there for you in such a wild time. There's so much hot air politically. There's so much economic, uncertainty. There's so much misinformation. And boy, you go down to the railroad and you can make progress. And it's so satisfying to be able to paint or weather or super detail or have a good operating session or go to somebody else's good operating session. There's no shortage of good energy when it comes to that. And I think as far as frustrations go, it's hard to disagree with some of the electronic stuff. When something goes wrong with the computer or with a programming, it is very frustrating when that kind of stuff happens. And the advice I can give is that we can still get through those things. There are experts out there that are willing to lend a hand. And if you're confused with Jammer I or ESU Loc Sound, if you don't like the way your TCS throttle interacts with your system, or if you're thinking about a different radio system, all of that, we've all been through this before as a group. And a lot of that information is out there to be able to be looked at, by any of us with a quick Google search or any one of the email groups, and again, you can drop a line either here to the Iron City guys or over on my Onondaga Cutoff page. There's different ways to get in touch, but for the first time in probably forever, these experts are available. It's sort of a moment's notice, and happy to share experience and to build the community going forward. So even though some of the computer stuff can be frustrating, or supply issues where stuff that's pre-ordered runs out, you can't get what you didn't see, there's ways to come around that, and the community is there to help.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Pat. Go ahead.
No, I was going to tell Brad and I had a good story. I said, Brad, there's a reason Black Hawk helicopter pilots carry a checklist with them before they turn the helicopter on. That's what I need to do with my digital side of the house. Check, check, and check. But go ahead, Brad.
But that point that you just made, Dave, about help being available so quickly, I can remember, back in my early days of the hobby, where something went wrong and you couldn't figure it out. It could literally be weeks until you got with somebody. Either you got to go. I'm talking like before I could drive, so I couldn't even drive to the local train shop here, English's Model Railroad Supply, to talk to somebody who knew it. I could literally. There were times when I had to wait weeks to get an answer to a problem I was having. Now you can often have one in seconds. You get on, you go on this group or that group and post it, and somebody is always willing to help and comes through pretty quickly. So that's another amazing part of this time in the hobby for me is what you brought up about having access to so many helpful people at the snap of a finger.
Okay, Chris, what do you think? What's something that you enjoy in the hobby, and what's something that's giving you frustration?
Well, it's going to sound a little bit like a cop out, but I enjoy it all. I really just enjoy everything from the carpentry and bench work up through the track work, getting everything running really well on the track, to the wiring. God help me, I even like the wiring. I've had a lot of practice with bench work, track work, and wiring, because that's usually as far as the layout gets in my world. And then before it gets torn down again. So, you know, what I really like the most though is operations, because it segues into community. And I guess it's really, the operations is almost incidental to the community. And one of the things, and both Dave and Brad touched on it, is the access to the help. One of the things that I've discovered that I really have enjoyed a lot the past couple of years, where it's really had a profound effect on my advancement in the hobby, is within the community being able to get those answers, being able to plug into the expertise of others, learn from others' mistakes. Because like Brad was saying, it could be, days or weeks before you could get an answer back in the old days. And that would, at least for me, and I'm sure others could feel the same way too, that anxiety that you're going to do something wrong and that you're going to mess something up, and you're not going to be able to, either you're not going to be able to fix it at all, or you're not going to be able to fix it until you talk to that guy that that you're not going to see for another month. Talk about something that would frustrate progress, because you don't even want to take the next step because you're afraid you're going to mess up. And one of the things that I really learned over the past year and a half or so was with my friend Ralph Renzetti, who a lot of you guys knew. He passed recently. But, to have those guardrails of him literally being next to me on my iPad and being able to coach me through weathering, I was able to make progress by leaps and bounds, because I knew he was there, that if I screwed up, it wasn't the end of the line. It was just an opportunity to learn. He would know, with his experience, he could help me back out and fix the problem. And so as much as I enjoy every aspect of the hobby, and especially the operations, just having the community and the people that you can go to, when it is such a sharing community and such a supportive community, is really the thing that I enjoy most about the hobby. The most frustrating for me is scenery. It's something that I love the result when I get to that result, and I've had some good results. I'm not being falsely modest, but getting there is always fraught with anxiety. and I feel like I'm this little bug, and there's this giant out there that's just ready to squash me. The first mistake I'm making, I'm going to screw something up that I can't back out of. And what I need is a Ralph Renzetti for scenery. Somebody to kind of just sit there and say, it's going to be okay. May I make a suggestion? we'll just suggest this adhesive instead of this other thing. So, but it's all good. I mean, like they say, a bad day off is better than a good day at work. Bad day in the train room is still better than a good day anywhere else. And even with the frustrations, it can, it's still a good day. It's still your hobby, and it's still something that you enjoy. But I will attest, like others have, the computer stuff. If there's going to be something that pushes you to the edge and makes you want to just throw it all out the window, it's going to be your computer. And It's going to be some of that decoder programming, which is a secondary love of mine, believe it or not. I do enjoy working on locomotives and programming them, but that probably has a lot to do with the fact that in my era, I'm only running one diesel at a time. I don't have to do all that consisting stuff you guys have to do in the speed matching and all that crap. I'd probably feel differently if I had to. So.
Well, I know I feel your pain, on Chris, on the scenery. I've been known to mock things up on my layout. I'm still building it like Brad is, and let it sit there for a year, and continue to show pictures to the Iron City, and let them kind of help me through it. Maybe you should move this building to the left, or move that track to the right, or and it sits there. But I tell you what, when you finally say, okay, I'm going for it, it takes about an hour because it's been sitting there for a year. You know where everything's at. So
I'm not,
the paint,
I'm not going to be able to quote myself, but I should write it down somewhere, like plaster it to my forehead or to my mirror or something. But one of the epiphanies that I came to with scenery is that it never, how did I have this? It never takes as long. You waste more time agonizing over it than you would doing it and redoing it and redoing it 3 or 4 or 5 times.
right.
You let it sit there for a year. You could redo it 6, 8 times in a few weeks, and you will have learned a lot more about the different processes, what works well for you and what doesn't. I mean, that's something that I've got to continually just pound into my brain, because I learn it and I have to relearn it and relearn it and relearn it. And every time I go down in the basement to do more scenery, I've really got to just realize, okay, you know something? It's just static grass. It's just glue. It's just, I mean, even if I have to like rip out all the cardboard lattice and the plaster cloth and everything else, you know something? It's still nothing. It's time.
Right.
But that time is time that you've learned and you've developed the skill and you've grooved those synapses and you've blazed that trail a little bit more. And next time it's easier. And I'm finally, I think you've heard it here on this podcast first. I think I may have just about grasped that.
Well, and it's a layered process, Chris. I mean, that's it's just like weathering, where it's a subjective sport. Everybody's going to have a different technique for it. But the products that are available right now for scenery, between static grass, tufts, super trees, and it's a new era, and it's a participation part of the hobby. Looking at other people's work it can be inspiring or terrifying depending on how you look at it. But the point is that if you start doing it, and then like you said, it goes quick, and then you come back down the next night, you look at it, and it's like, that doesn't look half bad. And then you can start to build on that, which I think is very exciting. So I think there's a lot to be said for doing it. And if you have to add a layer, just like in weathering, if you have to add a layer, it's going to look better with another layer anyway.
Well, the corollary to even a good day at the office is worse than a bad day at home. I think even bad scenery loads better than great plywood.
Right. Yeah.
I love it.
That's a great outlook right there.
Sure.
Okay, guys, we're going to wrap up with one more question, and we're going to let David Heyde go first on this one. And this question is, what are some trends we're seeing in the hobby on the HO side? Now, we've had conversations with Yardmasters on the N-scale side, but on the HO side, what are some trends you guys are seeing in the hobby right now?
So something was just released today, actually. Might give away when we're recording this podcast, but one of the new players in the HO market, Class 1 Model Works, just announced a EMD GP40 with working fans up on the top of their locomotive. And it looks like they're doing it in conjunction with soundtracks. So I think more automation to the locomotives. Also, they're going to have opening doors on the long hood of those locomotives. So if we've all seen, these old Jeeps running down the track with their doors open and when it's hot out. And so you can do that with your locomotive soon. So that's one thing. I think we're going to see more automation. And then I mean, I know you've probably talked about this, but I think the future of this hobby is in 3D printing. It's taking off, and it's going to come to the point where you'll be able to design a building that you want to have on your layout and be able to print it and then paint it and weather it and letter it and put it on your layout. And that's something that's pretty awesome. You're going to be able to get really specific detail on your layout soon, if not already, but in some ways maybe a little bit easier than the old methods. So.
It's interesting you say that, David, because that area of my layout that I was talking about, that I'm trying to make it look good, good enough to sit next to the Front Street station. One of the structures that I put beside that is a freight house that was 3D printed. I got it from a guy off of eBay, and the detail on it is just amazing. And I was able to paint that up, and I used a lot of the same colors that Scott used on Front Street Station. So the two buildings, I think, don't look out of place next to each other. But yeah.
That thing turned out awesome.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Thank you.
It really did.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I don't want to give away all the answers, but I think the last thing would be, there's certain companies like Iowa Scale that always pushing the envelope to bring out new, innovative products, and I think that's really great too. So,
Okay, Chris, what do you think were some trends that you're starting to see that you like?
Well, I don't really keep up with the trends in HO specifically. I mean, broader trends. I mean, certainly in HO, the trends toward more detail, what David was saying with the animation, certainly, but broader outside of any one scale, the growing trend toward, well, there are really two things: growing trend towards smaller and more detailed and higher quality. With 3D printing, that certainly factors in. You're getting details that you never got before from sources that you never heard of before. The democratization of this whole cottage industry of 3D printing and getting product out to people, it just allows folks to do more and more with less and less. I mean, it used to be that you felt like you had to have an entire basement empire to have enough that was going to keep you immersed and interested for a hobby of a lifetime. And that's no longer the case. Even if you have the space and that luxury, you may not have the luxury of the time and the money and the other resources to fill that space. One thing that I've discovered with, the size layout that I have is that if I were to start all over again, I would certainly start over smaller. And because I've come to discover, like I think a lot of others have with the trend toward going smaller and smaller, is that you don't need a lot of space to be totally immersed. You get into the detailing, and you get a proto-throttle and a good running switching locomotive. I mean, you can get by with a shelf layout, detail it to the nines, and you're off to the races, and you've got more than enough immersion to keep you happy. And that's a really positive trend in the hobby, I think, because it's going to make it more accessible to more folks, because they don't, either stay in one place long enough to have a basement size layout, or they don't have a basement, they don't have a garage, they don't have a large space. And the other thing is too, is really, it gets back, and I hate to keep hitting this same string on my fiddle, but it's the community and the ability to connect with so many different folks from literally around the world through so many different means and so easily. That trend will just continue on and on, I think, and will continue to grow this hobby. I mean, the days of hanging out, down at the VFW hall, and the days of hanging out down at the local hobby shop, I wouldn't say are over or necessarily in the past. I mean, there's certainly some great hobby shops, White Rose Hobbies, Warren's Hobby Shop, great places to hang out. But so many folks are hanging out online. And one of the things that we saw at the New Haven Railroad Convention that we did last month was the virtual communities are making events out of things like Springfield, things like different train shows, and having them become, in real life meetups where, they're able to get together. I mean, we've been talking about getting together at Springfield. I mean, we connect online and everything, but having that online connection, that virtual connection that you can maintain throughout the year, no matter where you are on the planet, but then being able to meet up in person from time to time. I mean, I think that's a really positive trend in the hobby, as well as being able to connect in so many different ways.
Excellent answer. Brad and I have talked about this, and Scott, I'm not sure it's got to your scale yet. We know it's really too soon for N scale, but this trend of dead rail, Scott, at the bigger scales where they're charging or trying to charge, I know G scale has it. Is that something you've seen in the S scale yet, or is that too soon?
Yeah, actually, I have done some of the dead rail, and I like it, but it's still not quite there yet. But I see it coming, and when that happens, I think it's going to be a big, big, big deal.
You've installed some Blue Nami decoders, or at least one.
Yeah, and I had one that I did with the Stanton. It was a Stanton Neil Stanton had come up with it, and it actually recharged the batteries on the rail using just DC power. So basically what it was a big keep alive. You just run around the layout, and when it hit a dead spot, the battery would take over. And that's basically what it was, but you were radio control instead of through the rail control.
And Brad and I were
It
talking.
really worked. It worked
Yeah.
well. I enjoyed it.
And Brad, we talked about the idea of the future of locomotives being like cell phones, charging stations, especially in the larger scales. I think we'll see that first. Of course, it'll be a long time before we see it in N scale, but that's something Brad and I had talked about for the larger scales. I hope to see maybe something come along, Scott, that you could show us here in the future. That would be pretty neat, I think.
I've been thinking about doing another one, but you just can't get the options you get with like a ESU decoder with all the nice sound, the engines you want, all the lighting. So that's yet to come.
Right. Okay, Uncle Dave, we'll let you finish out this answer. What are some trends that you're seeing?
I think, David touched about it before. The animation is a big new part of the hobby, and it's very exciting. Myself, I'm a big fan, obviously, of the signals. We use centralized traffic control on the Onondaga cutoff, so it's a signal-controlled main line. And the signals are animation, but when you look at what Iowa Scale Engineering is doing, when you look at what Azatrax is doing with grade crossing modules, there's a lot of different ways you can add working grade crossings, not just signals, but semaphores, not just semaphores, but train order signals. You can do all of these different pieces of animation. And then there's the whole Arduino camp with the little microcomputer that people build that's simple and can make a waterfall work or a water wheel turn or house lights go on and off at different times of the day for your railroad. So the animation, bringing the whole miniature world to life, I think is very, very exciting. And you look at the Loc sound decoders, and I have a mix of soundtracks and Loc sound decoders on the Onondaga cutoff. One of the things I love about the Loc sound is that I can have the lights start on. So the default is on. And when you walk into any Conrail locomotive yard or see any Conrail pictures from the 90s, the first thing you notice is that half the engines have the red marker lights on. And that's because of an old tradition on the New York Central and the PRR and other tuner and passenger railroads where tied down power, if it might move, if it was on the rear of the consist, it would have the red lights, not just in helper service, but in any sort of service. With a Loc sound decoder, you can actually set the lights to be default on, so your markers can be on when you turn your railroad on. And this is just one of the small details that you can get into that I think adds a lot of realism and a lot of pleasure to the hobby. I come down to the OC and I turn it on before a setup night or an operating session, and there's a bunch of little red marker lights glowing all around me, and it's just like walking onto the prototype. So being able to replicate these feelings that we had as kids around our favorite prototype, or these feelings that we first had when we saw our favorite prototype in a book or on a magazine, it's a wonderful time to be able to embrace some of this technology and plow it back into our favorite hobby.
Excellent. Okay. Brad, do you have anything to say to these great Yardmasters before we close up for this evening?
I just want to say thank you once again, gentlemen. It was so great to be able to sit down and talk with you guys again, with voices included instead of just through texting. And you had some great discussions that you provided us with. And so thank you so much. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did, because this was just a really great time. And if you're willing, I think we're willing, in the near future, if you guys want to, all of you or some of you or any combination thereof, you're welcome anytime you would like to come back on. I don't know if it'll be a Yardmaster segment, but just, discussions like this are important to have. So thanks so much for joining us tonight. And I can't say enough how much I enjoyed it. So thank you.
I had a miserable time.
I could tell you seemed a little salty tonight. I don't know.
Yeah. For some wallflower. Just
Oh my gosh.
Now, a lot of pleasure, and great to hear these voices. And it's a positive discussion. It's about bringing people together.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, Brad, that's a wrap on Go Big or Go Home, episode 15. What a great group of modelers, and I learned a lot tonight about the different brands and the different techniques everybody's doing at the larger scales, and it was just a great show. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, it's always fun to talk to those guys. I had mentioned while we were recording it that I've been texting with those guys a lot, but I haven't had a chance in a while to be able to just get on a platform like our podcast and just be able to shoot the breeze with them a little bit. So just want to say a huge thanks to our good friends, Scott Lister, who models in S scale, Dave Abeles, of course, who models in HO, Chris Adams, who is a very talented HO modeler, and David Heyde, who's not only a talented modeler, but also a very talented musician. So I keep saying the word talented when we mention those guys, but it's hard not to because they're just a good bunch of guys and have many talents in many different areas. So it was great for us to get to hear from them, and hope they'll be back on with us again at some point here in the near future as we get ready to transition to future seasons of the Iron City Roundhouse Report. Pat, we're getting down close to the end of season 1 here. So we have some plans to kind of close out the year for season 1, and then we'll start eventually talking more about what season 2 is going to look like. But we just want to make sure we say a big thanks to Scott, Dave, David, and Chris for being on. And it was so great hearing their voices again and chatting with them. So I'm really glad we were able to do this. And as always, it's for our listeners, and I hope you listeners who heard this enjoy listening to it as much as we enjoyed it, getting to talk to these guys.
Yeah, Brad, we want to tell everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for being part of the Iron City InScale page. If you want to talk to Brad and I or anybody you heard tonight, just get on the Iron City InScale page on Facebook, and you can DM us, or you can just post right there on the page if you have any questions. We've been doing a lot of surveys and questions lately about our podcast on the page, and we've had some great feedback and some really good topics that we're going to kind of hold over for season 2. And we'll make sure that everyone knows our schedule once we kind of lock that in here in the next next show or the show after. We'll kind of give you our holiday schedule, and we'll be back to premiere for season 2. The other thing Brad and I are doing right now is we're kind of spread out, going in different directions. I'll be going to different shows here over the holiday season, and Brad will be too. We'll make sure that we post everything, all the different shows and events that we'll be having on our web page, on our Facebook page, the Iron City InScale page. So take a look at that. If you want to be a member, and let's say you asked to be a member and you didn't answer the questions, unfortunately, we can't make you a member. You've got to answer the questions to the best of your ability. Please answer those questions so we can make you a member. Also, you can find us on all kinds of different platforms for the podcasting. We're on Apple, YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon. We're on iHeart, Player FM, Listen Notes. We're on Podchaser and Boomplay. And wherever you get your podcast, we're probably there. A lot of these different platforms have smaller platforms that they put into. So look us up. We're there. Hopefully in season 2, Brad and I are already talking about some more YouTube stuff, maybe some videos pulled from our Iron City page or some home videos that we do for our different layouts. So we're hoping to expand that a little bit over the winter. And like I said, Brad and I will be at different shows throughout the holiday season. And with that, I'll give it to Brad for his final thoughts.
Thanks, Pat. And yeah, I just enjoyed talking to some guys in some larger scales tonight. And like I said, great bunch of guys. You can talk to those guys for hours about just about any topic. But when you get them going on the topic that we're all passionate about, model railroading, it just flows. And all of a sudden you've eaten up an hour and you feel like you're only getting started with that bunch. So like we said, hopefully we'll have those guys back on again, and it'll make for an enjoying show again. But so I guess we're ready to close it out here. We just want to say, while we're thanking people, thank you so much to everybody who takes time to listen to us. We appreciate it. It just inspires us to keep doing it. The fact that, people continue to listen, and it just seems like the listener base continues to expand based on the data that we're looking at. So we appreciate the fact that you're willing to join us and take the time to listen. And Pat and I are working hard to line up more exciting guests. Hopefully we'll be entertaining and informative to everybody. So we just hope to be able to keep the momentum going here for the rest of this season. And then we've got a lot of exciting things for season 2, which will start after the holidays. So having said all that, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time on the Iron City Roundhouse Report.
All right, rail fans, that's all the steam we've got for this edition of the Iron City Roundhouse Report. Until next time, keep those gauges green, your couplers connected, and may your layouts always run smoothly. Happy railroading.